He wasn't a murderer, and he wasn't a rapist.
We don't even know if they followed up on any of these leads.
How can you have a fair trial when the prosecutor hides evidence and they lie?
The single case that haunts me and that I think about every day is Tony Apanovitch.
Initially, the crime was thought to be the result of a burglary gone wrong. During the subsequent homicide investigation, the attention of the police soon focused on 29-year-old Anthony Apanovitch, who had recently been hired by the victim to paint her house.
That afternoon, about 4:30, somewhere between 4 and 4:30, she came out of her house into her backyard, and I seen her, hollered at her, went across the street to ask her about finish painting the window frame. That was the last time I saw her.
The homicide detective called me on the phone and told me I had been indicted, and I thought he was lying. I couldn't believe it. This is a terrible crime, and he's arrested me on the phone. I said, but why me, man? He said, all I can tell you is this is a high-profile case, and they have to get somebody. And you look worse than anybody else because all your alibi witnesses are drunks.
There were a number of other suspects, and they never turned it over to the defense lawyers. And working through the record, we don't even know if they followed up on any of these leads.
I have no problem answering all their questions. They want to take my hair, blood samples, saliva samples, going to my house, looking, getting my clothes. I said, yeah, go ahead. It wasn't hard for me to cooperate because I didn't have nothing to do with the crime. The case was all circumstantial. There was no witnesses. And even the trace evidence expert testified that there is no physical evidence that links me with the murder. The prosecutor hid so much evidence, it's amazing. He lied so much, lied to the court. I had a homicide detective commit perjury. The federal court said he committed perjury. They said the evidence that was hidden didn't matter.
Prosecuting attorney is under a duty to disclose all relevant and material evidence and information. In this case, however, 9 years after the fact, we find out that relevant, important, exculpatory information was deliberately withheld at trial.
In 2000, the state conducted the testing, and in 2008, those results were shared with us. And those results showed that Tony did not commit the rape.
There's no doubt there's a God because the DNA documents, they were sitting in a folder in a drawer for 10 years because those were the DNA documents that proved I didn't commit this crime.
Judge McClellan sends an email to the party saying, guys, I'm ready to rule. So we rolled the dice and he made the decision to actually issue his decision from the bench. We were sitting at the table and the judge was reading this ruling from the beginning without knowing the outcome. It's not clear which way he's going. And then all of a sudden it was, we won. And everybody started crying. It was unbelievable.
So when I got out, I just called her up and said, hey, look, I'm out, I'm home, get over here. We had known each other for almost 20 years, I guess, or something like that. It's a long time. But within, 60 days, I knew I didn't want to be with nobody else. She was the love of my life. There are no words to describe how much I enjoy and love being her husband and also helping raise the two granddaughters. They were like, I didn't get to raise any of my kids, but I was raising these two girls, and it was, man.
They loved him so much, and he became such a huge part of their life, and he invested so much into our family.
He wanted to be a good husband, and he wanted to be, because I'm raising grandkids, so basically he wanted to be a good parent.
And he, as more freedoms were given to him, he cooked. He loves to cook. He did the cleaning.
Then he started doing the laundry. That did not work out well, by the way. I had to take that back. But so he became very involved in their lives. He would pick them up from school. You know, they'd stop and get an ice cream on the way home. He helped them with their homework. He was their dad.
He just was the best grandpa. I've never had a better grandpa, because he took me on dinner for our monthly going out to eat grandpa and granddaughter thing. And I love that. And we would sit on the porch in the morning and on the weekends, and I'd drink something, he'd drink his coffee, and we had the dogs out, and we'd joke together in the morning, and we'd laugh together, and that's just one of my favorite memories.
In my innocence or stupidity, however you want to look at it, I just didn't know that it would go down like that, I guess. I thought he would be requested to appear. I mean, because that's what they do. I mean, they knew where he was. It wasn't like he was... I didn't expect the U.S. Marshals to storm my house, you know.
There is physical evidence that shows I didn't commit the crime, yet they put me back on death row on a technicality.
The hyper-technical reading by the Ohio Supreme Court said that because Tony did not request the testing, he was not entitled to a hearing on DNA. Even though the state did the testing and the results exclude Tony from the rape, that wasn't enough. Tony had to make the request for the testing.
They took me straight to prison, straight to death row. I can't even describe how that felt. From my front yard to death row.
Every innocent prisoner that's fortunate to get out, their worst nightmares ever have to go back behind that wall. What crushes us is to see our family cry, see our family hurt. Because there's two things you can't get back in life: lost time and life. And the longer you sit behind that wall, that's lost time.
It was really hard, and I was crying really hard. It was just really hard to see him go away. He told me that he'd come back, and he told me he loved me and it would be okay. He was crying too.
When they first put me back, the kid's grades fell. The effect it had on the children, the worst part of it.
This has been harder than the whole 32 years I was fighting to get out.
You go through this agonizing feeling of what's happened to him and, you know, having to go back into that until he was able to come home, and then trying to keep it all together out here, and you go back and forth between the anguish for him, but the struggle out here, it was mighty. We need him, and we love him, and we miss him. And also, someone who didn't do something should not be behind bars.
How can they put me back here when the evidence and everything we did was enough to show I didn't commit this crime and to let me go? I'm not trying to get off death row. I want to go home. I'm getting old, man. I don't know how many good years I'm going to have left.